You reach for a handful of berries. Dark purple, plump, glistening with morning dew. Your hand stops halfway to your mouth. Something in you hesitates. You don't know why. You just know. For most of human history, that hesitation was the difference between dinner and death. For roughly 300,000 years, your ancestors lived surrounded by thousands of plant species, and most of them could hurt you. Some caused vomiting. Some stopped your heart. Some looked almost identical to something perfectly safe growing right next to it. There was no label, no warning sign, no poison control hotline. Just you, your senses, and whatever knowledge had been passed down to you by people who tested it first, sometimes with their lives. So how do they know? Part of the answer starts before humans even existed. Primatologist Michael Huffman spent decades studying chimpanzees in Tanzania and documented something remarkable. Sick chimps seeking out specific bitter plants they never normally eat, plants with compounds that expel intestinal parasites. Scientists call this zoopharmacognosy, animals self-medicating with plants. Your ancestors almost certainly watched this behavior in the animals around them. If a sick gorilla ate a certain root and recovered, that was data. If a bird avoided a certain berry entirely, that was data too. But observation of animals only gets you so far. Most plant knowledge came from something far riskier: trial, error, and memory. Think about what that actually meant. Someone at some point ate the wrong plant. Anthropologist Richard Lee spent years documenting the Jew/Hoansi San people of the Kalahari Desert in the 1960s and found something striking. Their botanical knowledge was staggering. Adults could identify over 100 plant species by sight and could tell you exactly which ones were edible, which were medicinal, and which would kill you outright. This wasn't rare specialist knowledge. It was baseline survival literacy, the same way you know not to touch a hot stove. Your body helped too. Bitterness, in particular, was a warning system built directly into your tongue. Many of the most dangerous plant toxins, alkaloids found in things like hemlock or deadly nightshade, taste intensely bitter to humans. That bitterness isn't an accident. It's the plant's own chemical defense. And over hundreds of thousands of years, humans who paid attention to that bitter warning tended to survive long enough to raise children who inherited the same sensitivity. The humans who ignored it simply didn't get the chance to pass anything on. Now, picture the reconstruction. A group moves into unfamiliar territory, a new valley, after a drought forces them to migrate. The plants here are strangers. An elder crouches by an unfamiliar shrub, breaks a leaf, smells it, touches a tiny piece to her tongue, waits. She doesn't swallow. She spits, watches for a burning sensation, checks her lips for numbness. Only after this ritual, repeated over days, does the plant earn a place in the group's mental map. This wasn't superstition. This was the scientific method, practiced by people with no laboratories at all. And sometimes, the knowledge came from an autopsy no one meant to perform. In 1991, hikers discovered the mummified body of a man frozen in the Alps for over 5,000 years. Researchers nicknamed him Otzi. Inside his gear, they found birch polypore, a fungus with known antiparasitic properties, deliberately carried and likely used as medicine. Otzi wasn't guessing. He was carrying the accumulated plant knowledge of an entire culture, threaded onto a leather strap, 5,000 years before anyone wrote a single word about pharmacology. Here's the twist, though. This knowledge wasn't just about survival. It was a form of power. The people who held the deepest plant knowledge, who could heal a fever, calm a stomach, or identify a poison hidden in a meal, often became healers, shamans, the most respected members of the group. Knowledge itself became currency, traded and protected as fiercely as food or fire. And it worked, for the most part, because of something you rarely think about. Humans are remarkably bad at forgetting a bad experience with food. One single episode of violent illness after eating a certain plant is often enough to create a lifelong aversion. Psychologists call this the Garcia effect, after researcher John Garcia, who first documented how powerfully taste and nausea become linked in memory, sometimes after just one exposure. Your ancestors didn't need 100 data points. Sometimes one near-death experience, remembered vividly and told as a warning story, was enough to protect an entire generation. Now, think about your own hesitation, standing in front of those dark purple berries. You probably couldn't tell me why they made you pause. You don't carry an elder's oral history of every plant in the forest. You've likely never tasted a leaf to test for numbness on your lips. And yet some faint trace of that ancient caution still lives somewhere in you, an inherited flicker of instinct built by tens of thousands of generations who paid attention, who tasted carefully, who remembered. You don't need to identify poisonous plants to survive today. But the part of you that hesitates, that reads a label twice, that trusts a gut feeling before trusting a claim, that's the same machinery your ancestors used to stay alive in a world with no warnings at all.